Hey guys, Trey Bender here with another episode of Program Stories. And today, I'm sitting here with Miss Meg Appelgate. So, Meg, tell us about where you went, how old you were. We want to hear all that. So,
All right.
What programs were you in?
I was in two different programs. The first one was a lockdown residential treatment center called Intermountain Children's Hospital in Boise, Idaho. And I was there for 6 months, and I was 15 when I got taken there. And then I went to a therapeutic boarding school in northern Montana called Chrysalis. And I was there for another 3 years. So I was gone for about a total of 3.5 years. And I got out actually at 18 and a half and went pretty much straight to college.
Okay. So were you taken there voluntarily or were you escorted?
I was not. I was escorted. I got gooned in the middle of the night. I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. I woke up and there was a man and a woman. This man was huge, a huge guy. And he said, "You're coming with me." And I remember I thought I was going to jail. I was for sure I was being arrested. And as I got up, he said, "We can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way." And obviously I wanted to do that the easy way because I was so scared. I asked them, can I go to the bathroom? And they said, "Sure, we just have to watch you do it." And I said, "Well, can I change clothes out of my pajamas?" And they said, "Sure, we just have to watch you." So I had to take off my clothes in front of these two people. My parents were crying at the door, saying, "We're not abandoning you." And I remember screaming at them and cussing at them, and they put me in the back of an SUV and headed off to LAX to send me to, well, I wasn't allowed to nowhere. So.
Wow. So what was running through your mind when all this started?
I thought I was going to jail. And after it became known that they weren't police officers and I got into a black SUV, I said, "Where are we going?" And they said, "The airport." And I said, "Where are we going?" And they said, "We can't tell you." At that point, I felt alone. I felt really scared. And, if I trace back, the anxiety that I feel today, it really all goes to that. I felt learned helplessness, only it occurred within minutes. And I immediately just submitted myself. And I didn't fight. I was so scared that I just decided I better do exactly what they say. So.
Wow. Okay. So when you first got to this place in Idaho, what's the first thing that happened?
So I actually, for some reason, well, not for some reason, trauma, I've blocked out a lot of stuff and I have patches of things, but I do remember as soon as I got there, it was right after or Super Bowl happened while I was there. Maybe it was Super Bowl weekend. So it was definitely like Super Bowl weekend that I came in 2001. And I arrived and they had to take all your clothes, all of your belongings, and it went behind the nurse's station and they had to search everything. And they took my shoes and I wasn't allowed to have shoes or shoelaces or anything that I could self-harm with. So no pencils. The only writing utensil I could write home with was in a crayon. So my first note home was in a crayon to my parents. The first thing I remember is just, "Oh shit."
So
I didn't know what to expect. I've never heard of this before. I didn't know where I was. I honestly felt clueless. And I remember, the doors, they're all magnetic doors. It's a locked down facility. Only time you go outside is when you're going from, one building to the next building, and there's a corridor and that's it. And the doors, red light locked, green light open, and it immediately shuts. So I felt like I was in jail. And to be honest, the other kids that were there really frightened me. And this was not, and I remember going to my therapist or person that was in charge and saying, "I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here." And they just kind of laugh, because everyone's supposed to be there to them. These kids were they were sick and they, a lot of them needed help.
When you say sick,
I'm saying like sick as in like actual mental disorders that need treatment. and other kinds of things that need treatment. Like some of them were suffering from like in the midst of an eating disorder, and they needed real treatment. Like they needed help and they weren't getting help. So I remember thinking, I don't know what I did to, be in this position. And I'm looking around. One of my roommates during that time, she was 16 years old, and she had schizophrenia. So I knew that I didn't belong. And so there was that element of fear being around people that, for lack of a better term at that point, like they scared me because I hadn't been around people like that before.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Actually.
No disrespect to them, obviously, but
of course not.
As a young child, that was super scary to see. I remember there was a young child, like 12, that was there that ate cigarette butts. And so like seeing that as a kid, you're like, whoa, what's going on? Why am I here? It's scary. It's surreal. So.
I've never heard of
Yeah.
anything like that, but I know that when I was that age, if I had seen somebody doing something like that, I would have felt very much the same way. So,
and I look back and I just feel sad because they needed care, and their parents probably thought they were getting care, and so it's disheartening for sure.
How was communication with your family restricted? Were you able to make phone calls, or was only letter writing allowed?
Only letter writing, and if I remember correctly, they read all your letters. And they read the incoming letters as well. There was no phone on the unit that I was on. So the only time that you could talk to your parents, I think it was once a week, and it was in the room that your case manager was with you. I think you had like a case managing meeting where you would talk about your treatment plan or whatnot. I think it happened once a week, if I remember correctly. I did not have much contact with my parents during that 6 months, and they were only allowed to visit once. Yeah.
How long were you at this facility in Idaho?
I was there for 6 months. And you have to remember too, like I'm an athlete. I was an athlete my entire like adolescence. I went into this program like in good shape. I played soccer, I played every sport, and I gained 60 pounds in 6 months because of, stress, the forced medication that they had me on. The second day there, they diagnosed me as bipolar along with everyone else. They put me on super, super, super high amounts of antipsychotics and, other bipolar medications, anti-seizure medications. And I remember that's part of the reason why my memory is gone, is I was so drugged up. So the combination of not getting any exercise, not being able to go outside and run around, no playing sports, really terrible food, like lean cuisine kind of food, and then medications. I mean, all of it. It's just, I was very unhealthy. Very unhealthy.
Was there any kind of level system or anything at this place?
So actually, surprisingly, no, unless I'm forgetting something, but I don't think so. What we have is like a group meeting. And I'm telling you, like the kids here, I remember being in a group and just feeling so uncomfortable. Like there'd be a kid next to me that would pull their hair out and eat it. And I'm sitting next to these kids and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be here,
I think I would know, because that's exactly what would have been going through my mind when I was that age, because I can honestly say I wouldn't have been doing it.
Every group I remember I don't remember any group, to be honest, because I was always so scared. I was so scared.
You were scared
the entire time. But instead of level systems, we had something called a milieu, and they had this milieu on the wall, and we would vote as a unit where we think our milieu was. Milieu being, how does the community feel? Are people getting along? Are there a lot of conflicts or this? And so we would vote on milieu, and utopia was the top. And I forget the other levels underneath, but when you start getting under utopia, if you got down to a certain level on the milieu, they would do a lockdown. And if they did a lockdown, then you're in for some shit, because you're going to be locked in your room for 24 hours and you have to spend that time writing essays and just like, so they basically give you a sheet. I remember the one time I had to do the lockdown, it was the list of all thinking errors. So there was like a list of thinking errors, and you had to write a page for how it applied to your life for every one of the thinking errors. And that's all you can do during that time. And you're not allowed outside. You don't go to the cafeteria. They bring the food to you. You eat in your room. You do everything in your room. And the room itself was very confined too, because so there was 2 people to each room, but you weren't allowed on each other's side, right? And so how is staff going to manage that? Well, they have motion detectors that sounds an alarm in the nurse's station if you cross on the other person's side of the room. So like you'll hear a beep if you go too far on your roommate's side of the bed. So like anytime if you're on the other side of the room and you need to go to the bathroom, you hear the alarm going off because you have to cross over. So the whole thing was very intrusive, right? And, there wasn't a moment of peace that entire 6 months. And I think that kind of just set me on a track of like fear.
I can imagine. So was food ever used as a form of punishment while you were there?
Not in that one. Nope. In fact, food, like eating was the one thing that that only thing that created dopamine in my brain while I was there. And I remember like wanting seconds and wanting thirds because like it was the only thing that made me happy. That's why I gained so much weight.
Yes.
That's the only I was like, I need dopamine. And how am I gonna get that? I'm gonna eat seconds and thirds and fourths, but they stop it. You're not allowed to have more than seconds. And so that's the only kind of thing that they would use. The only punishment revolving around food is if you were in the QR, which is the quiet room, the isolation padded room. If you were in the isolation room, you wouldn't have your food. You would wait till you get back. They'd bring you a tray and then they would set it in your room and you would have it late. But so that, I mean, the QR that we had, like I saw daily restraints. I mean, it was all the time. And there were kids that got restrained more than the other kids, and I would see this going on. And I've never seen a child act like this in my entire life. I've never seen someone acting, erratic and needing to be restrained and sat on and pulled their pants down and stick booty juice in. Like I've never seen that. And
was your interaction, was it co-ed or was it all girls?
Yes, it was co-ed.
It was co-ed. Okay.
It was co-ed, and it was co-ed in the same hallway, which is interesting. So usually it's separated, but they put like there'd be a boy over here and I could go to my room here and see a boy over here. So they didn't separate.
What was it like watching these restraints happen?
It was so frightening. Like I said, I've never seen, and I've never acted like that in my life. And these kids sometimes they were acting very erratic, and that scared me too. But they would call a code and all over the intercom, and you'd hear the magnets unlock and the doors open and staff would be rushing in and they'd grab them, they'd throw them down and they'd sit on him. And if they'd tell him to stop, and if he didn't, they would pull down his pants. The nurse would come over and inject him, and then they'd carry him by his feet and his arms into the QR, and they would lock him in there. And then when it eventually wore off, the kid would either be calm or he'd be screaming the QR. It was scary. I mean, there was even one time that, like, I don't know if I've ever told anyone this. There was one time when I wanted to know what that was like, because I didn't know and I got no attention. So I'm like, I'm going to be crazy and see if they do it to me. And I tried to be crazy and they laughed at me and they're like, go back to your room.
So you were never restrained?
Nope. You
were never given the shot?
Never given the shot.
You were never given the shot. Wow.
Never given the shot. Nope.
So I want to ask, now in your adult life, what do you take away from this experience now?
We put so much trust in adults as children.
Yes, we do. Yes, absolutely.
and that's something that's so beautiful about children is they blindly trust. They really do. In the same way.
That was me. When I was
Yeah.
that age, I blindly trusted adults because that's what I was taught to do.
So like naively, like when I was there, I trusted that that's what the right thing was. I was supposed to be there, I guess. And, I'm not a very rebellious person. I really don't like following the rule. Like I have to follow the rules. And so when I look back, honestly, what I take away from it is kind of the mom I choose to be, and the way that I let it impact the way that I parent my kids. Because I don't ever want them to be in a situation like that. And granted, I know my parents are like my best friends right now, and they made the best decision they knew how. And the different tactics that ed consultants and psychologists, the fear mongering that goes on, it's crazy. And so it has as far as anxiety and the negative effects, it has made me really scared to unknowingly make a decision as a mom that will affect the rest of my kid's life. So
I can understand that. I can definitely relate to that. I never had any children, but I think I do understand exactly what it is that you are saying.
Yeah.
That I get.
For instance, like when the vaccine came out, I struggled really hard with the decision to get my kids vaccinated with COVID-19 because we didn't know anything about it. And people are saying it's great. Well, people said it was great to send me away. What if I make this decision? And what if my kids are all of a sudden like have a disorder the rest of their life and I just caused that? I'm scared of making a decision that will affect the rest of their life, and I'll have that guilt because I know my parents have that guilt and I don't want to be in that position. So that's the greatest effect, I'd say, is that anxiety revolving around my kids and not wanting anything bad to happen to them.
I understand. I think my parents have finally admitted that it was a bad decision to send me away.
Oh yeah, mine did too.
And it took a long time for them to admit to that.
My parents, honestly, as soon as I woke up, they have been so supportive of the entire thing, and they're really involved with what I'm doing right now and everything. So I'm really lucky.
So I want to touch on this now. You were at another program in Montana.
Yeah.
When you left the one in Idaho, how did it go? Were you escorted to Montana? Did your parents take you? Like, what happened with that?
No, actually, I don't know how.
Were you told that you were going to be leaving and where you were going? Did you know, or was it just pack your bags, you're leaving? Like,
yeah,
kind of explain that, how it happened.
I knew I was going to be leaving.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be leaving. I thought I was going to be going home. A few days before I left, my parents told me that I'd be going to a boarding school, and I was devastated. But I don't remember leaving it, to be honest. I don't know how I got there, but I ended up, my memory cuts out there, and it goes to a week that I got to spend in Wisconsin, with my family before going to the boarding school, at our family house. And I remember that week, and I don't remember the trip to Chrysalis. I don't remember the boarding school, like how I got there. I think I flew alone to go there. And at that point, I'm going to do what I'm told.
Yeah, when I got out of there, I was like, can I have permission to do this now?
Yeah. I know, a little bit scared of making a mistake after seeing
a guy like me, like for me to be saying something like that, because I'll tell you, man.
Yeah.
It took a long time, but I think they started to break me towards the end.
Yep.
It took a while because, believe me, I was in defiance the entire time I was going through my situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get to boarding school in Montana. Where in Montana?
It's in Eureka, Montana.
Okay. I'm looking at the state of Montana, and is that like?
Looking at the state of Montana, it's literally on the border of Canada in northern Montana. So it's really, really up north. But
I've been up that way, and I know what you mean.
Yeah. very remote. I was in a unique situation though. I'm one of the only girls that ever arrived that didn't get to go to the house first. I arrived on their yearly trip to Glacier National Park. So instead of arriving to the actual boarding school, I arrived in the middle of the night into a tent. I was given a sleeping bag and slept on rocks. So I didn't get that warm welcome that people get. So after I went through that, they decided to never let a girl do it again. Because yeah.
All right. When you get to boarding school, I want to ask you, what's the first thing that happened there? Like, what happened?
Honestly, the first thing that I thought, I was like, oh, this isn't bad. It's in a really nice log cabin, this huge log cabin in the middle of nowhere with a huge horse pasture, a garden, a dirt road leading to it, nice big lawn. So the first impression was honestly, it'd be different if it wasn't after Glacier National Park, but after that trip. But I mean, the first impression is like that here's this group of people and two therapists that own it, married husband and wife, and they're kind of acting like a family. And that was my first impression, is these people are acting like family and they're calling themselves Chrysalis sisters. And so it just kind of, it felt like it was trying to be a family.
Okay, by trying to be a family, can you kind of explain that? Because I'm getting it here.
Yeah, no, it's in my opinion a little weird.
I would say it is.
Yeah. So we called each other Chrysalis sisters. And we were really close. Like the girls, we are all girls, by the way. We got very close, and some of my best friends come from back in Chrysalis. But the aspect of, my therapists were my, living in the room next to me, and I shared a bathroom with my therapists, was, it's weird. And it wasn't weird at the time, but looking back on it, it feels extremely inappropriate.
Okay, so
yeah.
So who exactly were you sharing the bathroom with?
So so my two therapists, they're the owners of the school, and it's Kenny Pinnell and Mary Alexin. And I started off at the house on the top floor, which is right across from the master bedroom. So I had to share the bathroom with them when I first arrived for the first 6 months, I'm guessing. But yeah, they kind of acted like the house parents, mom and dad, right? So, in a lot of ways, the girls acted like they were siblings. And that's the first impression that I got, I think. And that's what they wanted, right? That they wanted to be looked at as, and they called it the Chrysalis family. It is the Chrysalis family. So, that is what they intended it to be. So.
Was there any kind of point and level system?
Yes, there was a level system.
How many levels were there?
There's 3 levels and then a graduate. So a graduate is the graduate of level 3, and you are no longer in the program. So level 1 is what you're at when you come there. And level 1 is there's no trust. So you are not trusted to be alone. You are not trusted to be outside of staff's peripheral. And unless you're with a level 2 or above. So usually a level 3. So, there's also that hierarchy of responsibilities based on what level you're at. Like for instance, level 1, as far as makeup goes, we're all girls. You can wear foundation and you can wear mascara, but you can't wear anything else. Can't wear eyeshadow, can't wear lipstick, can't do your eyebrows. So just, lots of restrictions based on what level you are. Once you're level 2, this is very unique from what I've heard of any program or facility. You're actually able to go to the public high school, and you're able to complete your work at the public high school instead of being in the home school. So once you're able to do that, that's kind of the trust level. The levels have changed since, but that's the level of trust. So that's when Kenny and Mary know that you're more than likely to make the right decision. And if you make a bad decision, you're going to hold yourself accountable, and you're going to tell them.
Were words like accountable and accountability used?
Yes, defensiveness, accountability, ownership.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all, yeah. So those were big words thrown around in our circles, which are our group things. So.
Okay.
Oh, and then level 3 was actually interesting because you're usually going to the public high school at that point. Level 3, you can have a boyfriend, which is weird and crazy, right? But you can't touch your boyfriend. You can't kiss. You can hold hands, but you can't kiss. And you have all these other people watching you at all times, holding you accountable. So like you don't get away with anything. So even if you wanted to, you know you're going to lose your level if you do anything you're not supposed to. And other people are watching you like hawks.
I would imagine so. So while you were there, somebody was always watching you, you would say?
No, and that is the thing that I look back on and I'm like, well, how, right? And
that's what I'm saying, because
yeah, so you don't get, I
was always watching.
I was one of the longest to get to level 2. It took me like over a year and a half to get to level 2, which is a long time. They don't put you on level 2 to where you don't have to be around staff unless you're at a point where they can trust that you're not going to make a bad decision. And so they had, and this is all my opinion, they had a control over you, and they wouldn't let you out into public unless they could be sure that their control was a high enough level that they could trust you to do stuff on your own. And so in my opinion, it was a breaking down of your inner person until you are conformed to what they would think that you should be. And if you act in that way, you'll get your level and you'll get your freedom. And at that point, you work so hard for your freedom that there's no way in hell you're making a decision to lose a level. Like there's no way. And so in my mind, in my opinion, it's like an indoctrination. It is you and your decisions, though they seem like they're your own, they're not. They are heavily influenced by the relationships you have in the house and relationships that you have with the people in charge. So.
What kind of abuse did you see these staff and owners dole out to other people who were there with you? Like, is there any particular thing that you ever saw that stands out in your mind while you were there?
Yeah, there's a few things.
Could you share some of that with us?
So what we had, the first thing that comes to mind is our circle time, and it's called Circle, and it's group therapy. It could last anywhere. On good nights, it would be like an hour and a half. On bad nights, I've been in 6-hour circles, and it is what you would term as attack therapy. And it is if you hear your name being called, like, hey, blank, you would just feel your inner like body, just like your heart drops, and you're about to cry. You're about to be like hear all this negative stuff about you, and you can't cry or say anything because you're defensive. You have to sit there quietly. You have to listen to what they say, and then that's going to trigger someone else to say something else, and then you're going to hear from all these people around the circle. And the only way to get them to move on is to just shut up and accept it. And it's even better. It's even better if you say something like, I value your feedback. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
I get it. So you kind of had to just sit there and fake it, huh?
Yeah, you had to sit there, and honestly, in my opinion, that's abuse, is to hear negative things about you and not be able to defend yourself or stand up for yourself.
Absolutely, 100%.
And it was worse too, because the things, as soon as the girls talked, Kenny's going to talk. And honestly, I'm going to be real. Like,
please do. Please be as real as you need to be, Meg.
My truth is that Kenny is one of the scariest people I've ever met in my entire life. I am petrified of him. And my opinion is that he wants to tear you down in the inside so that he can have control over you. And when the circle finished talking about what they wanted and it went to Kenny, and he would draw in that breath to start talking, everything inside of me would just tremble. because his words meant the most to me, because I wanted his affection so bad. I wanted him to just like me and just be, accepting of me. And he would say things like, you got to stop being an idiot and you have to change who you are. No one's going to accept who you are in society. And you have an abrasive personality and no one's going to want to be friends with you. And he would just say these really unkind things and in unkind ways. Right. And honestly, most of my trauma lies in seeing his face say mean things about me. And regardless of if they're true, maybe I have an abrasive personality, but is it appropriate to tell a 15-year-old that? Is it appropriate to say it in that manner in front of a group of her peers?
I wouldn't say so, but I want to ask you something. Mm-hmm. What about Kenny made you just buy for his affection? What about Kenny made you do that?
Kenny is all these girls are in this house. They're away from their dads. They're away from male attention, which is really important at that age. It's what they are using in their development to predict who they're going to choose as a mate, right? Who they're going to choose when they grow up. Your relationship with your father is everything when you're a girl. And I think we all look to him as wanting his attention. And the really fucked up thing is that, in my opinion, the people he liked, he would torture, right? Like he'd come up behind you and he'd grab you on the neck and he'd, get really, really hard, and it hurt, but I liked it because it meant that he was happy with me. And so learning that as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girl, like that's bad. That's going to teach me pain is good. Pain is good. Abuse is comfortable, and be okay with this. And so, everything from that to, he used to have wrestling matches. We would wrestle with him. And I don't know why I didn't think that was weird. It's because he was trying to take the place of the dad. And so in my head, I'm thinking, well, we're a family. These are my chrysalis sisters, and I'd wrestle with my sisters. I'd wrestle with my dad. I wouldn't feel weird about that. And Kenny's my makeshift father. And it's, but looking back at it, it's like, that's really weird. I think that's really weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. So he actually got a complaint halfway through, and then he wouldn't wrestle with us. He would just have the girls wrestle. But everything from that to I remembered last week when my dad brought it up that when he visited, the girls were snuggling on the couches with Kenny, and we'd kind of snuggle up and get close to Kenny. And we just all wanted his attention, and he had favorites. And if you weren't his favorite, you just tried so hard to get him to like you.
How has this experience with Kenny and Chrysalis affected your adult life?
I would say if I was to do analysis of my life, and I would say that in my opinion, Kenny's relationship with me caused me to think that those kind of interchanges and reactions and the way that I'm supposed to be treated is normal. And I have gone on to 2 abusive marriages. And I found myself in situations that when I'm being treated right, I'm uncomfortable. And when I'm being treated wrong, I feel comfortable. And I had an amazing childhood. My parents are wonderful people. The only aversive experiences I've ever been through were there. And
it was the same way. I had a good childhood. I grew up in immense privilege. Mm-hmm. I did. I remember being very, very young. I remember I never had to worry about food on the table. And I remember my parents, they had cell phones back when having cell phones was a big deal.
Right.
And my parents just paid right out of pocket for my college. I graduated with no debt. That was I had a great childhood other than my time when I was sent away. That's how it was for me too. And I can really relate to that, Meg.
Right. And it's hard. It's I've moved through it. I have processed that kind of trauma. And I'm not scared of them anymore, and which is good. But my hope is that, yeah, I mean, that can't happen. I mean, the amount of time that's taken up my life, that's when I was 15, that was happening. I'm 36. Like, I woke up at like 33, only at 33. So I had trauma for those years, just crazy amounts of trauma. Another thing that, as far as things that I consider to be abuse, was medical neglect. There were multiple circumstances where I needed to see a doctor, and I knew that I couldn't because I was going to be called dramatic. And I remember I went to Kenny when I rolled my ankle in basketball at school, and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. And so I figured maybe it's time to ask Kenny to go to the doctor. And I said, Kenny, it's black and blue. It's huge. I can't put pressure on it yet. Can I go to the doctor? And he said, we don't go to the doctor unless you break a bone, and you can't break an ankle. And I remember walking away going, wait, you can though. Like, you can literally break an ankle.
Break an ankle. I assure you it can be done.
Right. And so, like, fast forward 15 years, I had a 4-inch tear in my peroneal brevis tendon on my right ankle that I had to have repaired. 4 inches.
Wow. Just
filleted down, that had been slowly going more and more and more over the years. And because of that, I had to have a big surgery, and, it's something that could have been healed. And I have multiple health issues right now that for some reason, a lot of survivors have these exact same ones. And so what's that?
I get that.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's definitely because of the trauma. It's definitely because of that, and also ignoring medical stuff that, needed to be taken care of.
Okay, Meg, I want to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Now in your adult life, what have you done to overcome this?
Oh, well, I have gone to be the person that they said I never would be.
I can agree with that. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Really, I'm talking about the movement that you're a part of.
Well, that is something that I'm doing. Despite them, I am creating, my co-CEO and we have created Unsilenced, which is an organization. Unsilenced, our mission is to stop institutional child abuse by empowering self-advocates to promote lasting social change. We don't want kids to go through this. We
don't want that at all. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, how could somebody else who has gone through the troubled teen industry like you and I have, how can they support Unsilenced? What could they do? What could any other survivor like ourselves do to support Unsilenced?
There's so many things.
Tell us all about it.
Let's see. Join our street team. Our street team is growing every day. I think we have like over 250 people on our street team right now doing the activism work that we do. You can, you can give us your story on our website. You can, go to our website and put your story in there and give it to us. You can give us old program documents. We have the largest archive of over 3,500 different programs and facilities over the United States. And any old brochures, any old documents, we have those all in our archive so that you can just go right down that rabbit hole. And let's see, also, we are a new nonprofit. We are fundraising, and yes, fundraising is awesome. If you have anything that you would like to give, we are going to start onboarding some new volunteers in the future. And if
sounds great.
Yeah, if you'd like some positions, we have a federal bill coming out in a couple weeks in DC, and we would love to support with that.
I love DC, and I think that's awesome. I think going to DC and marching on Capitol Hill is exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things is to just engage with us and check out our social media, check out our Instagram, share our posts. We need to get this awareness out. The only way we can stop this is by letting all the decision makers know. Otherwise, it's not going to get anywhere. Kids will keep being sent.
Okay. Meg, one last thing I want to ask you before we end this. Mm-hmm. You could talk directly to the owners of the programs you were in Idaho and Montana, especially Kenny and his wife. What would you say? If you could talk directly to them, what would you say?
Honestly, if I was to talk to Kenny, I would say one of a couple of things. I'd say,
What would you say? Tell us now. I want to.
I would say,
Say to Kenny.
who has the upper hand now?
And
I would say,
I like your style. It sounds like something I'd say. It sounds exactly like something I'd say.
and I would probably say, like, it sucks to be wrong, huh?
Oh
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I wouldn't, it's funny because I feel so much better than them at this point. Like, I wouldn't be mean. I wouldn't be unkind. That's not who I am. It's more just like, you did what you did and here I am. And I hope you enjoyed it because I'm taking down your industry. So yeah.
Wow. You know what, Meg? With people like you, how can we fail?
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we end this?
I don't think so. Just, thank you for having me, and
thank you for coming. Okay, guys. Program Stories, Trey Bender here with Meg Appelgate. Thanks so much, guys.